anime is just odd. I like anime. I really love anime. But every time I watch anime, I wonder to myself, why do people tell stories this way? For any of you who are unfamiliar with the genre of anime, let me explain. In this daily, we're going to learn a little bit about what anime is, what some of the themes are, and I'll be doing some analysis and some retellings of some famous stories from such popular animes as Elfenlied. So I want to begin by noting, what is anime? I think that's a natural question. Anime is a genre of a television series in which the protagonist is the fourth most interesting character in the series. In each anime, there's some unbelievably epic, apocalyptic event that will define the fate of humanity. Something like the rapture between heaven and hell, where the angels are going to come down and the demons are going to dig their way through the earth, and they're going to battle for 1,000 years until they're all dead. Humanity is going to die in like the first 8 minutes. It's going to be horrible. And the agents in heaven are like communicating with the earth people, and there's like some guy who's a representative of the treaty and the truce between everything, who's like, you cannot invade earth, it is where our people live. And the angel's like, this war is beyond you. And you're watching and you're like, oh shit. And then it cuts to a romance between two 16-year-old teenagers. And it's really awkward, and their cheeks turn bright red, and their eyes are larger than their head, and they do this when they're excited. Maybe he will see me at the track meet. And that, it might be hard to get there, but you endure it because eventually they're going to go back to the rapture, right? It's freaking sweet. Oh, I can't wait for that to happen. So we just sort of plot our way through that. And you know that it might end up with some epic thing with the angels winning, maybe the demons win, maybe the humans prevail. I mean, of all the epic choices that it'll end with, you can never quite be sure how it'll end. But you know that it will begin in a high school. So we're going to be talking a little bit about anime. What some of the tropes are throughout then. Let's go ahead and hop into game one. I'm not sure, again, for any of you who have never seen anime, there tends to be a very common thematic element coursing through the very essence of what anime is, which is an odd mix of incredible amounts of over-explaining with abrupt closeouts. No, Captain, you cannot invade the high school! That's where we go to school, with all due respect! Cut the scene! And all of a sudden, we're back with the angels in heaven, and they're like, alright, it's time to invade hell and shit. Excellent. Today, hell will burn. I'll buy it because it's anime. And we're back. In anime, there's this concept where when the protagonist in the anime defeats the final boss, someone arbitrarily comes out of the woodwork and says something along the lines of, haha, you have barely defeated my mere foot soldier. I am the true final boss, and I will meet you in like 8 or so episodes. And then pulls back, and as he pulls back, you see that he has eyebrows that start here and slant in angrily, and his forearms are bigger than every other set of muscles in his entire body, and his skin is a random color where they just threw a dartboard at a color wheel, and whatever it hit, that was his skin color. And he has like a couple fangs, and, and everyone watching goes, oh, bad guy inflation is so compelling. And this has carried Dragon Ball Z on for like 30 years? It's been like 3 decades, and they're like they have to use like scientific notation with the power level because it's like just getting so out of control. I mean, I almost want to introduce Graham's number and make a really goofy up arrow notation math joke. But I think that my audience for that joke is 1. Just go Google Graham's number. I want to talk a little bit about storytelling mechanics. Because this is something that casters have to deal with all the time. Let us say, for instance, that there is an attack strategy that is very difficult to defend. And we look at the defender's base, and we as casters see, oh yeah, he's going to be able to defend it. No problem. His defenses will be finished 5 seconds before the attack comes. I shouldn't say that, right? That's actually bad to say. I want to withhold a little information. Because if I say, alright, there's an attack that's going to come and his defense will be done in 5 seconds, there's nothing to worry about, then there's no tension, there's no excitement, there's no fun. But what we end up saying is we say things like, it's going to be an extremely close call. Because we know it's going to be close. And then 5 seconds before the attack comes, ooh, we've created tension. Yes! There's a multitude of storytelling problems that exist in any realm of fiction or improvisational storytelling, any of them. And one of the most interesting ones is, how do you present information to the audience in a natural way? Right? In a natural way. In other words, how do you present information to the audience without an info dump? You don't want someone to stand up there and just be like Wikipedia and just like say stuff. Just like you want it to be like a conversation, right? You kind of want to have some mechanism for doing that. So for instance, in Shakespeare, we have like the classic confidant. How do we get the thoughts of the main character? We have him talk to someone suave with a kick-ass name like Horatio. And then they have a conversation. Oh, how amazing. This is so great that we have this. In anime, there's this interesting way that they have the confidant. Well, it's not really a confidant. Let me tell you what's a very common theme in anime. It's a character that I want to call the Screamer. It's generally a boy from the age of like 10 to 17. And everyone in the anime world is generally very stern and mysterious. You have a man who stands still, and whenever anyone asks him a question, he doesn't say anything. The wind just blows in his hair, like, does that. And he just has, like, some sort of crazy thing, you know, like the servant in Blood Plus, who has, like, a coffin as a weapon. And he just sits there all cool. And then there's the girl with amnesia, and she's like, I don't know what's going on. She can't give any information. So they have this guy run up, and he just yells at people. He's like, what's going on? Why aren't you talking? Well, what are these superpowers? Where are we? And he just yells at people. He just goes nuts. He's just constantly freaking out. And when he runs up to people, someone could be standing there. You know what the Screamer does? He runs up and he holds his arms back like this, and he's like, you can't do that! You can't go to the castle! Why are you leaving us? And his arms are back. My thighs are already burning from this position. I gotta stand up, man. And you know what the Screamer's additional primary role is, other than to extract information out of people by yelling? He gets himself into unbelievably dumb situations where he is completely defenseless, and the protagonist, the fourth most interesting character in the series, has to come to his rescue. Does that sound about right? Now, a lot of people in chat think that I don't like anime, that I'm bashing on anime as a genre. I love anime. I watch so much anime. Claymore, woo! Love Claymore. Watched all of Claymore twice because I love monsters. But I still sit there and wonder, why do they tell stories like that? Again, I spent a lot of this weekend sort of searching for new anime. There's a couple series that I like quite a bit. Death Note, certainly my #1. Avatar: The Last Airbender. Some people don't count that as anime because it's a Western anime, but love it. And I remember I was talking to a friend who said, like, I'm looking for an anime kind of like this, and I said, oh, you might enjoy Elfen Lied. My friend says, well, what happens in the first episode? And I remember I told him, and it just sounds so weird when I say it out loud. So I wanted to spend at least some part of the day just telling you, for any of you who had never seen Elfen Lied, what happens in episode 1. And also, if you have seen Elfen Lied, I want you to note that nothing I am about to say is a lie or an exaggeration. Alright. So, Elfen Lied begins with an explosion of blood. normally in anime, when people get like wounds, like, you know, like a paper cut, it's never like, ow, that stings. It's like, it's like crazy, like this hyper pressurized, it's like a pressure valve blew out in the plumbing system. It's like terrifying whenever anyone gets any injury. So there's one of those, and there's this girl in a straight jacket, and she has like a helmet, and she's clear something crazy about her. So everyone in the vicinity dies, and suddenly she's naked for no reason. She's completely, like, full frontal nudity with the helmet still on, like she's protesting Daft Punk or something. It's just that usual sort of like, that's a trope, is what we call it. So she's exiting this government facility, and of course there's the usual shots of some guy at a desk looking at a security camera of what's going on, and he's not going, "Oh my God, I have to call the colonel." He's going, and there's two lines on his face that are wiggling as he's looking into the security camera, and then he just dies. So she goes through a door, and there's like 4 police officers. And they like start shooting at her, and they're like blasting away, and they all just get freaking cut up. Now you don't know this at the time, but the weapon that you're not seeing, it looks like people are just getting cut up by nothing. But what's actually happening is that she has these invisible lightning tentacles that can cut things up within a 2-meter range. There's this interesting thing that animes tend to do, which is to take a concept and just to give it some English word that's just kind of neat sounding for no reason, right? Like, oh my God, these people have special abilities, and every time they use them, they have to pay the price for having used their ability. Like, they have to eat food or break their finger or like pet a dog, and these people are called contractors. Ugh. And in Elfenlied, the invisible laser tentacles are called vectors. Yeah. Doesn't matter. It's always some odd thing, like the people can communicate with corn, and they're called hitchhikers, and they just rely on that for like the whole series. So everyone's sort of talking about, oh my God, her vectors are only 2 meters long. And I'm like, I love linear algebra, but I don't see a matrix. I don't see the application, but that's okay because these cops are getting split apart. And normally what happens is most Western drama, a couple cops get split apart. She breaks through a door. She escapes the facility, but she has to kill like a few hundred police officers and military people. So first she kills 4, and then she goes through a doorway, and there's like 8, and she cuts all them up. And then she goes up an elevator and out a door, and there's like 20 guys. But she doesn't kill them. Instead, a random girl comes in with coffee, falls, spills the coffee, and then she gets cut up, and then all the 20 officers get cut up. So right now we're like halfway done with the anime, and she's outside, and there's that colonel who has like some blood on him. He's one of the only survivors, and he's like, "All right, you have 1 shot to make with this sniper rifle. Make it count." And the guy's like, "Don't worry, I got this." And I keep in mind, this girl's totally naked with a helmet on, and he uses the sniper rifle to shoot her in the helmet. She falls off this cliff, she splashes into the water, and then it just all of a sudden cuts straight up to a guy meeting his cousin, and they're talking about going to their mother's shop to clean it up. So all of a sudden, now in a few episodes, there's going to be like a romantic interest between the 2 cousins. We won't get to that. So they're just walking along the beach, and then they see that girl from the facility, and there's that moment of tension where you're like, oh my God, that girl's crazy. She cuts people up with, I don't know, because they haven't told you really about vectors yet. And of course the guy looks over and he goes, and the girl's like, I'll freak out. And then it turns out this murderous, helmet-wearing, generally constantly naked girl winds up having long pink hair, cat ears, and can only say the word new. So these two take them home. And they name her New, because that's the noise that she can make. So after calling her New, this murderous girl goes, ah, and then falls to her knees and pees on the floor. Has anyone noticed anything that I have said that is not true thus far? Doesn't that happen? Okay, and then it ends with some... it wraps up, episode 1 wraps up with the government facility sending after the New... they send after her this guy who's so evil that you're just like, all right, come on. I know he's evil. You know, he's one of those guys who's like, I hate shooting at targets because they can't bleed, and I want to kill things. Targets cannot beg for your life. And you're like, okay, I get it. You're crazy. You're just going to be the killer guy. Totally cool. Got it. Girl with a clipboard comes up to him, and he punches her in the face, and he's like, don't sneak up on me. And you're like, oh, totally get it. He's evil. And then they're flying in a helicopter, and some guy's like, well, hey, this mission could be dangerous. And he holds a gun to his head, and he's like, oh, I'm evil. And you're like, geez, I get it. And then it ends. I actually really like it. I strongly recommend it. It's a good series. Has the interesting tension of the apocalyptic drama and a romance. It's on Netflix. It's strong. So I definitely think you should check it out. Yeah. So that happened.